Hello everyone, Adam Monk here again from 442. Now, Kevin De Bruyne has recently returned, much to City fans' joy and much to everyone else's disgust. Well, yes, that is right. He's back with a new trim, some new veneers, and some new teammates to play football with as well. And given that fact, I think we potentially could be about to see the best ever version of Kevin De Bruyne. Now, part of this video is going to be factual and part of it will be speculative, but I think you might be able to see where I'm coming from. It's something that I've kind of got a hunch on. Yeah, about that hunch, Adam. Well, this video, guys, was actually recorded on Friday, just before Kevin De Bruyne came on against Newcastle. Now, don't get me wrong, I think Kevin De Bruyne is a very good footballer, and so do you most probably. However, I did not expect him to hit the ground running quite like that. However, the positive note is the assist that he got to Oscar Bob in that left-hand side of the pitch kind of helped prove a point I was trying to make in this video. So maybe he's a bit telepathic, but Kev, you've made this a little bit of a nightmare for me, so all my homies hate KDB. Only joking. Anyway, enjoy the video, guys. This is about how good Kevin De Bruyne is at soccer. So let's talk about it. So firstly, let's start with a little history lesson for all of you. So I hope you're revising with your notebooks out because I'm going to take you back to the summer of 2015. That is when Manuel Pellegrini at the time signed Raheem Sterling, although from what I know, and who was also at the club, it was really a Pep Guardiola signing because Txiki Begiristain and that were there in the background and they were laying the groundwork for Pep. So let's just say De Bruyne and Sterling were Pep signings. And then also the summer later when Pep Guardiola was in charge of Manchester City, he signed Leroy Sané from Schalke. So what does Sterling and Sané have in common, you ask? Well, one's left-footed, one's right-footed, but they can both play either side. And the system that Pep Guardiola played in 17-18, which won them the league with 100 points, played out a little bit like this. So how did that Centurion City side line up? Well, the back four changed every week. It was sometimes Delph, sometimes Zinchenko at left back, but in midfield, mainly, it was Fernandinho in the 6, David Silva, Kevin De Bruyne in this midfield triangle, and then Leroy Sané and Raheem Sterling over here would hug the width and hug the touchlines as much as they possibly could, and then Aguero and Jesus up top. Now, the reason Manchester City were so ruthless at the time and were blowing every team away is because of how they scored the goals and how relentless the pressure was on the team. So one thing they do is they push the midfield this high up, so Fernandinho almost playing in the opposition's final third, and they just try and smother teams with collective pressing as much as they possibly could. Or should they win the ball in this area of the pitch, sort of here in, their own half, they would look to transition as quickly as possible using the width and pace being the key word, of Leroy Sané and Raheem Sterling. And then the typical Pep Guardiola goal back then was one of them getting to the byline here, cutting it across, there's the ball, and Aguero would score. Good finish from Adam, well done. So there we go, that was how City back then really used to attack and score their goals, but the key man in the attack really above all was, you guessed it, Kevin De Bruyne. And these screenshots here really showcase De Bruyne's just world-class ability to find the likes of Sané and Sterling in behind, knowing the pace that they've got, and sort of knocking it into an area but with inch-perfect precision for those two to be able to get on the end of it. So here you can see Sterling scoring a goal at Selhurst Park, made by De Bruyne running that channel from the right-hand side. Another example here at home to Burnley, where Leroy Sané ran in from the left-hand side and De Bruyne again just slotted it into all of that space, the acres that he had to run into, and Sané finished. And then this clip here, you've all seen it, you all know the assist, but probably the best ever pass of a football I've seen in the flesh, but I'm only putting this in to showcase the run that Sané made, the fact that De Bruyne knew Sané was going to make that run and he was calling for it, and the fact that De Bruyne could actually make the pass. I think that's the key thing. De Bruyne can physically make that pass, whereas most other players, if not any in the world, could pull that off. So back then, that way of playing was sort of Manchester City's cheat code, and Leroy Sané and Raheem Sterling were of course pivotal to that because of their blistering pace in behind. However, history lesson number 2 now, who did Pep Guardiola sign out wide after that? Well, it was Riyad Mahrez in 2018, and then of course Jack Grealish in 2021. What makes these guys different, Adam, you ask? Well, no, probably not, because you probably already know the answer. Well, the difference between those two and Sane and Sterling is those two, Mahrez and Grealish, aren't as quick, are heavily more reliant on ball retention, and score most of their goals from cutting inside against banks of 10 defenders sometimes. They're really more to do with close touch dribbling, keeping the ball, maintaining control of football matches. I think that's been the through line with Pep Guardiola's system for the last 2 or 3 years, and that's why Mahrez and Grealish were so beneficial to them in the last few years, and why they ultimately won a treble as well. Now, this right here is the most recent iteration of how Manchester City have played football, and on the ball, this would be Rodri here, he'd go here. You already know this, but John Stones would go here. Kyle Walker then sort of covering in this right space, and then you'd sort of have a back three. This could also be a Kanji, and then John Stones drops there. You've seen what's going on with the inverted fullback situation, but the reason behind this is because since the days of the Centurion season where City got 100 points, teams have typically played a bank of 10 against City now. Not to suss them out, but because of damage limitation, really, and how killer Sane and Sterling used to be. So Pep had to adapt and deploy the likes of Grealish, Mahrez, or Bernardo Silva on this right-hand side to maintain possession. Gundogan and De Bruyne would push up here, and they would keep the ball on the edge of the D for, several minutes on end at times, and then it'd be death by 1,000 passes, and one of them would find a way through, and then Mr. Erling Haaland would tower over someone, woo, and head it into the net. But, you've watched football in the last year. You know how this works. Now, I don't really need to show you screenshots of that. You're not stupid. You have been watching football in the last year, and you've seen that that is how City have played and have had to play as well because of the wingers at their disposal. However, someone new has come in, and his name is Mr. Jeremy Doku. Now, who does he remind you of? Well, he's two-footed. He can play left wing or right wing. He hugs the width. And if you haven't noticed, he's extremely quick. So what Jeremy Doku allows City to potentially, let's say, revert back to is that old system of Sterling and Sane, because Phil Foden's quite quick as well and can play out wide, but Doku really, we've already seen it without Kevin De Bruyne, but he likes to hug the touchline like Leroy Sane did, and running behind. Problem being, though, no one in midfield at City is as good at football as Kevin De Bruyne.
Wow. I didn't know that. You're telling me now for the first time.
So with Kevin De Bruyne's freakish ability to pick out passes from anywhere and put balls into areas that only Jeremy Doku can really get on the end of, it unlocks an ability that De Bruyne has not been able to express for a good 3 or 4 years, really since Leroy Sane left, because then Sterling started playing on the left-hand side. So it gives De Bruyne the capacity to start playing football and start making passes how he used to about 5 years ago. So why will this role be hybridised with what he currently does, you ask? Well, the simple answer to that is Erling Haaland. He is very quick in transition and can also get on the end of those kind of slid passes into areas. We saw it last season, particularly on his first game for Manchester City at West Ham away, where De Bruyne slipped him through, as shown here. But also we've seen the atypical Haaland goal being that looping header, and usually it's delivered by Mr. Kevin De Bruyne. So again, home to Wolves last season, Southampton away, just to name a couple. De Bruyne has also got a lot more assists of recent with Erling Haaland in the team from literally just punting balls into the area, which is something he couldn't do back in 2018 because the guys in the box were Gabriel Jesus and Sergio Aguero, who aren't exactly tall. So how will Kevin De Bruyne here operate for the remainder of the season, or how could he potentially operate? Well, if Manchester City win the ball in their own half or in this sort of area of the pitch here, then it might open up the opportunity for De Bruyne to find Doku hugging this left-hand side in transition and knock it into this area of the pitch here. Or if he's on the right-hand side, knock it into this area of the pitch over here. So, like so. That went out, like, it got stopped by a magazine, but you get the idea. Doku would have got on the end of that because he's a very quick lad. And then if Manchester City are in this area of the pitch with the ball, knocking it around here against a bank of 10, well, you have Mr. Erling Haaland here, who, as we've seen last season, is always sniffing around goal. And De Bruyne will often drift into this right half space that he likes to operate into here and float one into Erling Haaland, who will jump up and head it into the net. What a finish, Erling. So the point I'm trying to make is, as a Manchester City fan myself, one before 2008, by the way, But as a City fan watching De Bruyne for many years, I have seen different versions and iterations of Kevin De Bruyne, and the current one, well, the one last season anyway, when he was playing, the type of assists he was getting were very, very different to the type of assists he was getting 5 years ago to the likes of Sterling and Sane because of the personnel in the squad. But now with Doku and Haaland in the team, who he's, obviously benefited from Sane. When Sane was there, Doku's a similar profile. It's almost like he's got the best of both worlds, and now with a big target man up front who can get on the end of balls with his flailing limbs and acrobatic expertise, and Doku who can run the channels with blistering pace, it gives De Bruyne the most variety of assists, shall we say, than I think he has ever had at his disposal in this Manchester City team, which is quite frightening, really. Anyway, let me know what you think. Do you think I'm right? Or do you think I'm waffling? Let me know in the comments, because I do really think with the personnel in this team right now, particularly being Doku and Haaland, De Bruyne might have the most variety of assists at his disposal.
Don't keep saying it, but...
Of course, guys, as well, do not forget to subscribe. Hope you have a lovely, lovely day, evening, whenever you're watching this. I've been Adam Monk. Have a good one. I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.